Inside ADX Florence, America's most extreme end-of-the-road prison. There are prisons, and then there's ADX Florence, a place so feared, so isolated, and so meticulously engineered for control that inmates call it the end of the road. Here, silence is not just policy, it is weaponized. Every door, every hallway, every second of an inmate's day is designed to break the last fragment of rebellion from the most dangerous minds America has ever contained. Today, we're stepping into a fortress built for the men the system could not control. A concrete labyrinth carved into the Colorado desert, where the average inmate spends 23 hours a day alone, monitored by cameras, lasers, motion sensors, and a security philosophy that leaves no room for mistakes. But what really goes on behind those steel-reinforced walls? How did this prison become the final destination for terrorists, cartel leaders, mob bosses, and escape artists who shattered every rule before landing here? And why do former wardens say ADX Florence is the closest thing the U.S. has to a clean version of hell? Before we dive in, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. If you enjoy true crime stories like this, be sure to like the video, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and share it with someone who'd love it too. A quick reminder to my amazing viewers. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this documentary with someone who enjoys deep true crime stories. Your support helps us keep uncovering the hidden worlds most people never get to see. Most prisons are built to contain violence, but ADX, it was built to contain chaos itself. This is where the United States sends the men who defy every form of authority, the masterminds who ran global networks from payphones, the escape artists who tunneled through concrete, the gang leaders who executed orders from solitary confinement, and extremists whose crimes shook entire nations. Some inmates are so dangerous that they are never allowed to speak to another human without layers of glass, steel, and concrete between them. Others have not touched another person in decades. But the story of ADX isn't just about criminals. It's about a blueprint born from desperation. A prison created after a series of violent uprisings, assassinations, and escapes forced the federal government to build something no one had ever attempted before. A place where escape is mathematically impossible. A place where violence dies in silence. A place where control is absolute. Entering ADX, the first impression. From the outside, ADX Florence looks less like a prison and more like a military installation. Barbed wire spirals along multiple perimeters. Guard towers rise above the desert like silent sentinels. The air itself feels heavy, dense with the unspoken truth that no one who enters these fences does so casually. Visitors describe an eerie quiet that settles over the compound. Even the wind seems to move cautiously here. The entrance is a stark corridor of metal detectors, scanning devices, ID checkpoints, and reinforced doors that open only one at a time, like airlocks in spacecraft. Inside, everything narrows into a rigid geometry of order. Hallways built at angles that eliminate blind spots. Doors that slide open only after biometric verification. And cameras that record every second of every movement. Corrections officers here don't shout. They don't threaten. They don't need to, because the building itself does the talking. Why ADX was built. The story of ADX Florence begins long before its first inmate arrived. By the late 20th century, federal prisons across the United States were overwhelmed with inmates who refused to be controlled. Gang leaders orchestrated murders from within their cells. Bombers and extremists inspired violence on the outside. Escape attempts became more elaborate and more lethal. The most infamous of all was the 1983 murders at the Marion Federal Penitentiary, where 2 correctional officers were killed in coordinated attacks just hours apart. The violence shook the federal system to its core. Marion went into permanent lockdown, a 24/7 solitary regime that sparked national controversy. But officials knew something else. Marion wasn't enough. They needed a facility capable of housing the most uncontrollable inmates the country would ever see, individuals too dangerous for general population, too manipulative for any medium security prison, and too determined to escape for anything less than perfection. And so, ADX Florence was born, a place designed from blueprints that prioritize zero contact, zero movement, zero unpredictability. A prison not created to punish, but to contain. The cells, a world shrunk to 7 by 12 feet. Inside ADX, the cell is a universe. 7 feet wide, 12 feet deep, poured concrete bed, concrete desk, concrete stool. Even the mirror is made from polished steel, impossible to shatter. A sliver of a window sits high on the wall, angled so inmates can see nothing but the sky. No mountains, no guards, no horizon, just an endless strip of blue, a reminder that the outside world exists, but not for them. Every morning begins the same way. A door buzzes, a meal tray slides through a slot, a voice announces the schedule, and another day of silence begins. For some inmates, this environment quiets the chaos that once fueled their violent lives. For others, the silence becomes a pressure that bends a mind in ways no one outside those walls can fully understand. The routine, control in every second. An ADX inmate's day is carved into strict increments. Breakfast, cell check. Exercise, 1 hour in a cage the size of a garage stall. Showers, monitored, timed, controlled. Music or TV, only through speakers embedded into the walls. Communication, limited. Movement, restricted. Privacy, non-existent. Every time an inmate leaves their cell, they are escorted by multiple officers. Shackles on ankles, cuffs on wrists, a chain around the waist locking everything in place. Even conversations happen under watch. Even recreation happens behind steel mesh. Even medical visits occur under layers of security. This is how ADX prevents violence, not through force, but through total control of environment. The men who live here. ADX Florence is not filled with petty criminals. It houses individuals whose actions altered history, ignited national fear, or commanded violence on a scale few institutions had ever witnessed. Terrorists responsible for mass casualties, leaders of powerful drug empires, mob bosses once untouchable in the free world, prison gang commanders who ran networks across multiple states, serial bombers whose crimes still haunt entire communities. Every inmate here earned their transfer through behavior, not reputation. Many were placed in ADX only after proving they could not be controlled elsewhere by organizing assaults, manipulating staff, or destabilizing entire prison units. To live in ADX is not a sentence written on paper. It is a sentence earned through actions that left the system no choice. The silence behind the violence. People see ADX as a place of punishment, but inside its walls, the true story is more complicated. Some inmates describe the silence as a powerful force, one that forces them to confront every mistake, every crime, every life they destroyed. Others describe it as a slow erosion of the self. Days blur, thoughts loop, time stretches until the mind struggles to contain it. For correctional officers, the environment is just as isolating. Many are veterans of high-stress prisons, but even they admit that ADX feels different. Quieter, more calculated, more intense. A place where even a whisper carries weight. A place where every decision is made with the knowledge that one mistake could end in tragedy. The design that makes escape impossible. If the inmates are the heart of ADX, the building is its armor. The prison was engineered with layered security barriers, multiple perimeter fences topped with razor wire, motion detectors buried in the sand, laser systems scanning for movement, cameras covering every possible angle, doors that cannot open simultaneously, pathways that funnel people one direction only. Even if someone broke out their cell, an almost impossible feat, they would still need to bypass electronic locks, secure corridors, armed patrols, and miles of fortified terrain. ADX is more than a prison. It is a fortress built on math, architecture, and psychology. Every wall, every camera, every restriction has one message. No one escapes. Ever. The legacy of ADX. Decades after opening its gates, ADX Florence remains the most secure federal prison in the United States, and one of the most controversial. Supporters argue that it prevents violence, protects staff, and isolates individuals who refuse to live peacefully in any other facility. Critics argue that extreme isolation can damage the mind in ways no sentence ever intended. But one truth stands above all others. ADX is a mirror reflecting the darkest parts of the American criminal justice system, the violence it endured, the chaos it cannot risk repeating, and the lengths it will go to maintain control. This is not the end of our story. This is only the beginning. The journey to ADX, how inmates arrive. No inmate wakes up in a regular prison and suddenly finds themselves at ADX. The journey to America's most secure facility is calculated, deliberate, and only triggered when someone has crossed the final line. Transfers often begin before dawn. A cell door opens. Orders are given quietly. Inmates are cuffed, shackled, searched, and escorted out in a process so controlled that not even a cough escapes unmonitored. Outside, a secure transport vehicle waits, sometimes accompanied by U.S. Marshals, sometimes by armed SWAT escorts. Routes are secret. Roads are cleared. Convoys travel at unpredictable speeds to prevent ambush or escape attempts. By the time the inmate sees the Colorado desert, their fate is already sealed. ADX Florence is not a place you visit. It is a place you are delivered to when every other door has been slammed shut behind you. First 24 hours, the break-in period. The first day inside ADX is unlike any other prison intake. No interactions, no threats, no sudden chaos. Instead, the silence is deafening. New arrivals are escorted through a sequence of narrow hallways, each with its own metal detector, each door sliding open only after the one behind it locks. Every movement is watched. Every hesitation is recorded. Medical screenings follow. Psych evaluations. Security assessments. Then comes the moment that defines the rest of their sentence. The walk to their permanent cell. It is a corridor that feels like the end of something. The end of rebellion. The end of status. The end of whatever power they once had. Once the steel door shuts, the reality hits them. This is life now. A world reduced to a concrete box and the echo of your own breathing. Surviving solitude, the psychological battle. ADX doesn't break the body. It breaks the momentum. For men used to power, influence, or violence, the sudden stillness becomes its own battlefield. In solitary confinement, every thought grows louder. The past creeps in with no distractions to keep it away. Some inmates journal obsessively, writing letters that will never leave the building. Others pace in patterns, so precise they can be measured with a ruler. A few meditate or pray for hours just to keep the mind from unraveling. But the hardest part isn't the silence. It's the absence of choice. In most prisons, even dangerous inmates negotiate their environment, who they talk to, who they avoid, how they navigate conflict. In ADX, there is no negotiation, no alliances, no movements that aren't authorized by someone else. For some, structure becomes a strange comfort. For others, it becomes a slow erosion, a daily reminder that they are no longer captains of their own fate. The range, where control begins. ADX is divided into multiple sections called ranges. Each one is a sealed world of cells, control stations, and silent routines. The most restrictive sections, like H Unit, are where inmates considered national security threats are housed. Here, staff communicate through intercoms to limit exposure. Mail is reviewed word by word. Even recreational movement is computerized. Officers walk the range with quiet precision, checking each door, each observation window, each monitoring point. There is no room for complacency. A single loose screw could become a weapon. A delayed reaction could escalate into tragedy. Yet for all its strictness, the range is a rhythm, predictable, mechanical, almost sterile. In this environment, routine isn't just policy, it's survival. Meals, nutrition under lockdown. Food in ADX is simple, standard, and delivered with clinical precision. 3 times a day, a tray slides through a rectangular slot. The inmate never sees the officer's face. The officer never sees the inmate's hands uncuffed. Menus rotate on a strict schedule, no forks, no metal objects, nothing that can be sharpened or broken. Even the hot water is controlled. For many inmates, meals become the clock that marks time. Breakfast, morning has arrived. Lunch, the midpoint. Dinner, another day completed. In a world without conversation or social interaction, the simple act of eating becomes grounding, an anchor to the rhythm of prison life. But even this routine hides layers of control. Trays are checked. Dietary requests are vetted. And any refusal to eat is documented as a potential psychological issue. Every meal, every bite, is monitored without the inmate ever seeing the eyes watching them. Mail, communication, and the outside world. Communication from ADX flows like water through a narrow funnel, measured, filtered, and carefully directed. Letters sent by inmates are read before leaving the building. Incoming mail is scanned, screened, and redacted if necessary. Phone calls are rare, monitored, and strictly time-limited. Video visits? Only for a select few. Even then, multiple officers supervise from different angles. For inmates used to commanding organizations in the outside world, these barriers cut off the last thread of influence. A single coded message in a letter could spark violence elsewhere, so the system ensures every word is weighed before reaching its destination. For many inmates, the outside world fades slowly. Names become distant memories. Faces blur. And the idea of normal life becomes something half-remembered. The yard, Freedom, Indiana A box. To most people, yard time means open spaces, sunlight, movement. In ADX, it means stepping into another concrete enclosure, a space not much larger than a shipping container, with razor wire overhead and a narrow strip of sky above. This is the exercise area for inmates in the highest security units. No contact with others. No conversation. Just the rhythm of footsteps on concrete and the distant sounds of wind moving across the desert. Even this hour is carefully controlled. Officers watch from behind reinforced glass. Cameras track every movement. The door behind the inmate locks immediately upon entry. For some, this is a highlight of the day, the only moment where they can breathe fresh air. For others, it feels like a reminder that freedom is a concept they can see, but never touch. The units within the prison. ADX is more than one prison. It's a collection of microenvironments, each with its own rules. General population units. Still solitary, but with more privileges and limited communication. Special security units. Home to inmates who require extreme monitoring due to behavioral histories or gang affiliations. H Unit. One of the most restrictive environments in the U.S. This is where high-risk international extremists are housed under near-total isolation. Control Unit. Designed for inmates who have shown consistent violence or manipulation in other facilities. Each unit operates with its own level of tension. Some are quiet and predictable. Others are battlegrounds of psychological endurance, where inmates fight to maintain identity in a world designed to blur it. Behind every steel door, behind every echoing corridor, behind every silent cell at ADX Florence, there is one constant that rarely makes the headlines. The people who stand on the other side of the bars, the correctional officers, the medical teams, the staff who walk into a world built to contain the most unpredictable men in the nation and do it every single day. They do not wear capes. They do not seek recognition, but their presence is what keeps the walls steady. Their vigilance is what keeps the system from collapsing. And their sacrifices, the emotional weight they carry home, will never appear in any documentary except the one life writes for them quietly, day after day. Because ADX Florence is not just a prison. It is a machine of routine and responsibility, built on thousands of invisible decisions made by the people working inside its perimeter. People who understand that one slip, one moment of complacency, one misread gesture could tear open a wound the system may never recover from. So as we leave the desert fortress behind, as the steel doors slide shut and the echoes fade into silence, remember this. The story of ADX Florence isn't only about the men inside those concrete cells. It's also about the men and women who walk the ranges, stand the posts, and carry the burden of maintaining order in a place designed to confront chaos. A place where isolation shapes lives on both sides of the wall. A place built to end violence, but one that also demands immense strength just to work within it. A place where control isn't just enforced, it's lived. This is ADX Florence, America's end of the road, a fortress of solitude, a mirror of the system's hardest choices, and a reminder that behind every headline, every case, every inmate, there are people trying to keep the balance between safety and humanity. If you found this documentary powerful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who loves deep true crime stories. And let us know in the comments, what part of ADX Florence shocked you the most? Thank you for watching. And until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and stay aware.